everyone, my name is Courtney. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I've discussed this before, but I kind of wanted to change up my wrap-ups, try something different, try and change up the wrap-up format since it is one of the most static things on BookTube. And so I'm doing that by doing a journal with me video, and I'm just going to talk through the books as I write them down in my journal pages. Journaling is something I started up in the new year of 2021. It's really helped me. I'm not a natural journaler. I'm not a poet kind of person, even though I am a writer. I'm not super poetic, and so I don't really write anything profound in my journal. Sometimes I write my feelings, but a lot of times I like to use it for like book reviews, but more so different than the ones I put on Goodreads. I just like to put kind of my own little thoughts or thinkings on them, something more personal that I want to remember if I look back on this journal and what I felt while reading it. So the month of December, it was our last month of 2020. Thank God, we're moving into 2021 now, which I know we're all appreciative for. And I was able to read a pretty good amount this month. As you can see, I'm starting off with a page dedicated to Catherine's house. It's also just a page dedicated to a project I did. That's why I have the receipts, so I can remember that little project I did. So one of my videos, I decided to read off of Kayla Books and Lala's recommendation list for weird books. I read 3 of the books on that list. Bunny and Follow Me to the Ground I read in November, and then I finished out that video by reading Catherine's House, which I finished in the month of December. I think it was the first book I read in December, the first book I finished at least in December. Yeah, so I'm just dedicating this page to kind of finishing off that project and then some of my little feelings and thoughts about Catherine's House. So if you don't know Catherine's House, it's a modern Gothic tale about one young woman, Inez, who is kind of on the run in life, and she gets into this elite boarding college, and it's very mysterious and there's secret things going on. And I have more of my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on this book in my reading vlog, so I don't want to spoil it too much because I work so hard on that. So definitely go check that out if you want to hear more of my thoughts on the book. But I will say that I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 stars, and I know it's not a book for everybody, but I highly recommend you try it, especially if you like weird books. And so the next page is dedicated to a little snippet for most of the books I read. When I journal, I don't dedicate a single page to every single book I read, just because I don't always have super deep thoughts, feelings, opinions where I need a whole spread for each book. So I just wanted to do a more simple page where I just kind of put down all the books I read and just kind of put a little snippet thought about what I was thinking. So one of the books I read was The Ask and the Answer by Patrick Ness, and this is like a post-apocalyptic sci-fi western-y kind of book. It's very weird. It's even dystopian in some ways. It's a lot of different genres working together. I think that's my favorite part, is that I love the world. It's so interesting, this kind of like alien western settler kind of vibe to it, but I love how the different subgenres kind of play into the story as well. This is the second book in the Chaos Walking trilogy, and I gave it a 3 stars, 3.5 stars. I thought it was more interesting than the first book where they're just kind of on the run the whole time. And there's a lot I like about this book. I really enjoy the commentary on toxic masculinity. Because this world has this weird magical divide between people because of gender, I really hope that they make more commentary on gender and just not like toxic masculinity. I wish there was more like trans inclusion in the stories and like how a trans person would live in this environment. And I really hope that the colonization thing kind of plays a bigger aspect in the coming part of the novel, in the next part. So far, I like this series. It's not my favorite. It can be a little frustrating at times, but overall, it was a great read. The next book I have on here is Tower of Nero. This is the 5th and concluding book in the Trials of Apollo series by Rick Riordan. I've been reading Rick Riordan books since middle school. It's kind of crazy to think that I've come so far and kept reading his series, but I really do love his writing. It's just so funny. Even though I'm 24 years old, I found myself chuckling at so many little jokes in this book. I like this series, but it's not my favorite. I really like what Rick was trying to say with the character of Apollo and kind of this apology tour that he's going on through the book series and kind of the growth that he has done as a character. Percy Jackson will always hold a very special place in my heart as like the best series. I really, really love his Norse Magnus Chase series. That is one of my favorites as well. And so I'm glad I got to read this entire series, and it really is nostalgic in a way. It brings me back, and I had a really good time reading it. I really enjoy Rick Riordan books still. And so the next couple books that I read in December are Yona of the Dawn, Volume 27 and Volume 26. This is one of my favorite manga series of all time. I really, really love it. It's a fantasy, romance kind of story. It's pretty light on romance in the beginning, I would say, but as time goes on, I love this romance. I love this relationship. Mostly, it's a fantasy. It's a shoujo fantasy with a kick-ass female heroine who learns and grows so much in the series. I rarely see a manga series, heck, I rarely see a young adult series, a fantasy series where the main character has such a big character arc, and I just appreciate it so much. I love Yona and how much she's grown and learned in this series. She starts off as a spoiled princess and she grows and learns, and it's just so, so great. You don't normally see this kind of character growth unless you're reading a male-centered story, so this just means a lot to me. And then the next book I have on here did get its own page, and that would be Hood Feminism by Nikki Kendall. This is a essay collection. Each chapter is like its own little mini essay about a specific topic. So Hood Feminism is an essay collection focused particularly on intersectional feminism. I took a women's and gender studies class in my undergrad experience, and I wouldn't say that anything in this book really surprised me. I'm very lucky that I got a really good education in that class, so I'm really lucky that I learned a lot of this early on and that I've been exposed to a lot of these theories on intersectional feminism. But I really love this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It's not too beginner, I don't think, if you're just coming into feminism as a topic, as a discourse theory, political activism. I don't think it's too beginner, but I think a lot of people that have been involved in this kind of activism will have already experienced it and know a lot of the stuff in here. But again, I really, really loved this essay collection. It touched on so many great topics, and it was just really nuanced and well written, and I highly, highly recommend this to anybody who wants to learn more about intersectional feminism. It was so good, and I want to continue reading more essay collections, especially around topics of race, especially around topics of feminism, intersectional feminism, going forward into the new year. I think it was just a really good thing for me to read, and I want to continue my studies because I really do love reading stuff like this, and I learn so much. Last, we are coming into a different video where I had to film this a little bit later, and that's because I finished my last book of 2020. I always save reading it till the last second. I really don't do these wrap-ups until the end of the month because I always end up finishing something around the 31st. And so yes, my final book of the year, my final book of 2020 was Dig by A.S. King, and this is a contemporary young adult novel, but it's pretty mature for a young adult novel in the content matter and stuff. There's trigger warnings or content warnings for a couple of things. Domestic abuse, sexual assault is implied, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, I believe. Definitely look into those triggers if you are sensitive to different topics. Oh, race is a big trigger as well, which I'll get into. So this book is mainly talking about this group of teenagers that connect and overlap, and it's also discussing like this family line through this story of like this corrupted family history, this family tree. Through these loosely connected teenagers, it's discussing like white privilege, but it gets into more serious topics of racism as well. It goes pretty in depth with different kinds of racism and white privilege. It's beautifully written. It's so, so good. It's a very uncomfortable novel. A.S. King says at the back of the book that it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. I honestly loved it. It was just so, so good, and I loved what this book was talking about, and I loved all the metaphors around potato farming. This book has like a surreal, fabulous twist to it, and it's just so, so wonderful. I gave this a 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite perfect for me. I do think some of the themes of like sexual assault needed to be a little bit more pronounced, but overall I really loved this. It was so, so good, and it was definitely just such a great way to end 2020 with such a great, hard-hitting contemporary novel. Yeah, I loved everything I read. I loved Dig. I loved everything. I just had such a good reading month. I didn't read a ton because, it was the end of school and it was the holiday season, but the stuff that I did read was just so amazing. So diverse too. Like, I read a bunch of different stuff from different genres, so just such a great month to end the year on. I'm just really hoping that 2020 proves to be a better year, obviously. I think we all hope for that. But anyway, I'm going to end the video here. So thank you so much for watching, for listening, hearing my thoughts about the books I read. If you prefer this style of wrap-up, let me know if it worked, what I can improve upon. But again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.